During a wedding, the waitress freezes when she realizes the millionaire groom is her husband, who was declared dead 9 years ago. She walked closer, and Marianne Collins stared at the faded photograph on the wall, the edges curling slightly from years of quiet vigil. Richard's smile, frozen in time, haunted her daily life, a ghost that never truly departed. 9 years had passed since that rainy night when 2 police officers stood at her door, rain dripping from their hats onto her welcome mat. Mrs. Vaughn, the older officer, had removed his hat, a gesture that told her everything before words could. "I'm afraid there's been an accident." The memory still pierced her like shards of glass. She'd been 5 months pregnant with twins, her belly a taut dome beneath her nightgown. The officers explained how Richard's car had veered off a cliff on the Phoenix Highway, how the vehicle had burst into flames upon impact. No body recovered, just a charred wallet, a melted wedding band, and fragments of the life they'd planned together. Now, at 31, Marianne tucked a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear and glanced at the clock. The twins would be home from school soon. 9 years of being both mother and father had etched fine lines around her eyes that hadn't been there in the photograph beside Richard's. Their wedding day, her 22nd birthday, a lifetime ago. "Mom, Ethan took my science project." Lily burst through the front door, her brother close behind, both of them whirlwinds of backpacks and untied shoelaces. "Did not. I was just looking at it," Ethan protested. His face, so much like Richard's it sometimes stole Marianne's breath. Flushed with indignation, Marianne stepped between them, the practiced peacemaker. "Lily, your project is safe, Ethan. Homework first, then you can look at your sister's work, with permission." Her tone left no room for argument, a skill honed through years of solo parenting. After dinner, mac and cheese with hot dogs cut into octopuses, a Friday tradition, and after tucking the twins into their shared bedroom, Marianne collapsed onto her sofa, bills spread before her on the coffee table like a depressing fan of playing cards. Rent due, electric past due, school field trip fees for both kids. The red figures blurred as exhaustion pulled at her eyelids. The phone's shrill ring jolted her awake. Lauren's name flashed on the screen. "Please tell me you're not calling to cancel girls' night," Marianne answered, attempting lightness despite the heaviness in her chest. "Better than girls' night." Lauren's voice bubbled with excitement. "I've got a job offer for you. The Monroe Saunders wedding needs extra waitstaff this Saturday. Rich people, big tips, and they're desperate." "Say yes?" Marianne hesitated. "I don't know, Lauren. The twins. Mrs. Patel can watch them. Come on, Marie. This is one night of work for 3 months of your electric bill, the Sunridge estate, champagne flowing, celebrities. It's the wedding of the season." The Sunridge. Marianne's eyebrows rose. Even she knew about the exclusive mansion in the wealthy enclave 30 miles north. Who exactly is getting married? Ryan Saunders, that tech investor who's been all over the financial pages, and Isabel Monroe, the hotel heiress. It's obscene how much they're spending. Just on flowers alone. Okay, Marianne cut in, mental calculations already running. 3 months of utility bills would give her breathing room. Maybe she could even start a small savings account for the twins. What time do I need to be there? Saturday evening arrived with merciless speed. Mrs. Patel from next door arrived with homemade cookies for the twins, waving away Marianne's gratitude with practiced nonchalance. Go, make money. These little ones and I will have fun." Yes, the Sunridge estate loomed against the twilight sky like something from another world. Massive stone columns flanked the entrance, where luxury cars deposited guests in designer evening wear. Marianne slipped in through the service entrance, where Lauren waited with a black uniform pressed and ready. "You look exhausted," Lauren observed, helping Marianne pin her hair into a severe bun. "Double shift at the diner yesterday," Marianne explained, applying the mandatory red lipstick with a steady hand. "Ethan needs new shoes." Lauren's expression softened with a sympathy Marianne had grown to hate. "Things will get better, Murray. They're fine now," Marianne replied with practiced brightness. "The kids are healthy, I've got 3 jobs, and Mrs. Patel brings us dinner twice a week. We're luckier than most." The grand ballroom of the Sunridge gleamed with oppressive luxury. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across marble floors. White roses and orchids cascaded from every surface, their perfume almost suffocating. Marianne balanced a silver tray of champagne flutes with the skill of someone who'd spent years carrying multiple plates at once. "Remember," the catering manager instructed, "invisible but available, no eye contact with the guests unless they initiate, and always, always smile." For 2 hours, Marianne glided between clusters of beautiful people discussing stock portfolios, vacation homes, and private school applications. Their wealth was so casual, so assumed, it made her chest ache with something between envy and anger. 9 years ago, she and Richard had planned a life of modest comfort. A small house with a yard, family vacations to the Grand Canyon. Nothing like this excessive display, but it had seemed magical then. "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice announced over hidden speakers, "please welcome the arrival of the groom, Mr. Ryan Saunders." The crowd turned toward the grand staircase. Marianne, positioned near the bottom step, lifted her tray higher as the guests surged forward. The string quartet transitioned to a sweeping melody, and then he appeared at the top of the stairs. Time froze, sound vanished. The world contracted to a single point of impossibility. Richard, her Richard, thinner, more polished, his hair styled differently, but unmistakably him. The same eyes, the same small scar through his left eyebrow from a childhood bicycle accident, the same slight asymmetry to his smile that had first drawn her to him across a college classroom a decade ago. Marianne couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her fingers, suddenly boneless, lost their grip on the silver tray. It crashed to the marble floor with spectacular violence, champagne and crystal exploding at her feet. The music stuttered. Hundreds of eyes turned toward her, including his. For one eternal second, their gazes locked. Recognition flashed across his face. Shock, panic, guilt. Before a careful mask slid into place, he looked through her, past her, as if she were merely a clumsy server who'd interrupted his grand entrance. With practiced charm, he laughed off the disruption and continued his descent, moving toward his waiting bride. Marianne's lungs burned. Black spots danced at the edges of her vision. Somewhere distant, Lauren was calling her name, but all she could hear was the thunder of her own heartbeat. Her dead husband was alive, walking, breathing, about to marry another woman. The room tilted sideways. Marianne stumbled backward, glass crunching beneath her sensible black shoes. Without conscious thought, she turned and ran, pushing through swinging kitchen doors. Past startled staff, down service corridors. Outside, the cool night air hit her flush skin like a slap, doubled over in the parking lot. Gasping, one thought crystallized with devastating clarity. Richard had abandoned her, abandoned their children. He'd chosen to let them believe he was dead while he built a new life of wealth and privilege. Marianne straightened, tears streaming down her face. 9 years of grief, 9 years of struggle, 9 years of telling their children bedtime stories about their heroic father watching over them from heaven. All lies. In that moment, something hardened within Marianne Collins, something that would never be soft again. Marianne's legs gave out beneath her. She sank to the cold pavement of the parking lot, her server's uniform absorbing the grit and oil stains. Her mind raced with fragmented thoughts, impossible scenarios colliding against the hard wall of reality. Richard was alive. Richard had left her. Richard had chosen wealth over his family. Richard had watched her bury an empty casket. A sob escaped her throat. Raw and primal, around her, the Sunridge estate continued its elegant evening. String music drifting through open windows. Champagne flowing for everyone except the broken woman in the parking lot. "Are you all right?" A deep voice cut through her fog of shock. Marianne looked up, hastily wiping tears with the back of her hand. A tall man in an expensive charcoal suit stood before her, concern etched across his distinguished features. Silver threaded his dark hair at the temples, and his eyes, kind eyes, she noticed, studied her with genuine worry. "I'm fine," she managed, the lie transparent even to herself. "I just needed some air." "You don't look fine," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Daniel Harper." She hesitated, then took it, allowing him to help her to her feet. "Marianne, I saw what happened in there. Whatever you saw upset you terribly." His voice held no judgment, just quiet compassion. "Can I call someone for you? Get you some water?" Before she could answer, Lauren burst through the service entrance door, her face pale with concern. "Marianne." "What happened, mister? Davenport is furious about the broken glasses and—" She stopped short, noticing Daniel. "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. It's my fault," Daniel said smoothly. "I asked your colleague to step outside for a moment to discuss the wine selection. I'll speak with Mr. Davenport personally." Lauren's eyes darted between them, suspicion and relief battling across her features. "Okay. Marie, are you coming back in?" The thought of returning to that room, of seeing Richard again, made bile rise in Marianne's throat. "I can't. You're ill," Daniel stated firmly, not a question. "I was just offering to drive Mrs. Marianne home. Please tell Mr. Davenport that I'll cover any damages." Lauren hesitated. "Marie, is that what you want?" Marianne nodded, unable to form words around the knot in her throat. Lauren stepped closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "Text me when you get home safe, and call me tomorrow. We need to talk about what happened in there." After Lauren reluctantly returned inside, Daniel guided Marianne toward a sleek black Mercedes at the far end of the lot. "You don't have to tell me anything," he said, opening the passenger door. "But I couldn't leave you out here alone." Inside his car, the leather seats smelled new. The dashboard glowed with subtle blue lighting, the contrast between this luxury and her everyday reality. The city bus with its torn seats, the second-hand sedan that broke down twice last winter, felt like another slap from the universe. "I live on Westfield Avenue," she said, voice hollow. "The East Side." If Daniel registered surprise at her working-class address, he didn't show it. He simply nodded and pulled smoothly away from the Sunridge estate. As they drove in silence, Marianne stared at her trembling hands, mind replaying the moment on infinite loop. Richard at the top of the stairs, Richard seeing her, Richard looking through her as if she were nothing. "Sometimes," Daniel said quietly as they waited at a red light, "the hardest ghosts to confront are the ones still walking around." Marianne's head snapped up. "What?" "I saw your face when Ryan Saunders entered." His eyes remained on the road. "You looked like you'd seen a ghost." "I did," she whispered. Daniel didn't press. The rest of the drive passed in silence, the city shifting from manicured estates to commercial districts, to finally the modest neighborhood Marianne called home when he pulled up to her apartment building, a tired 3-story walk-up with peeling paint. She felt a sudden, irrational shame. "Thank you," she said, hand on the door handle. "You didn't have to do this." "Here," Daniel said, reaching into his jacket pocket. He handed her a business card, heavy cream cardstock with embossed lettering. "I'm an architect if you ever need anything, even just to talk. Please call." Marianne took it, a small lifeline in her upended world. "Why are you being kind to a stranger?" Daniel's smile held a shadow of old pain. 3 years ago, my wife died suddenly. I know what it's like when the floor drops out from under you. Whatever happened tonight. You don't have to face it alone. Tears threatened again. "Thank you," she repeated, unable to offer more. She watched his taillights disappear down the street before climbing the stairs to apartment 3B. Mrs. Patel opened her own door across the hall before Marianne could even reach for her keys. "The children sleep," the older woman said softly. "You home early? Everything okay?" Marianne forced a smile. "Just feeling a little unwell. Thank you for watching them." After Mrs. Patel returned to her apartment, Marianne crept into the twins' bedroom. Moonlight spilled across their sleeping forms. Ethan sprawled diagonally, one foot hanging off the mattress. Lily curled tight like a comma, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Richard's children who believed their father was a hero who died trying to provide for his family. How could she possibly tell them the truth? Meanwhile, back at the Sunridge estate, Richard Vaughn, now known to the world as Ryan Saunders, stood in the groom's suite, hands braced against the marble vanity. His reflection stared back, face ashen, despite the expert makeup applied by the wedding stylist. "Pull yourself together," he muttered. "She's gone. It's handled." The door opened, and his best man, Jack, entered. "Ryan, everyone's waiting. Isabel is getting anxious." "I'll be right there." Richard straightened his tie with practiced fingers. "You okay, man? You look like you've seen a ghost." Richard's laugh sounded hollow, even to his own ears. Just pre-wedding jitters. But as he returned to the ballroom, his eyes scanned the crowd for Marianne. She was nowhere to be seen. One of the catering staff was cleaning up the broken glass. All evidence of the disruption nearly erased. Relief washed through him, followed immediately by a wave of shame so potent it nearly doubled him over. Isabel stood waiting at the altar, radiant in designer white, her dark eyes shining with triumph and possessiveness. This was his life now. The powerful CEO, the social elite, the man who had risen from nothing to build an empire. There was no place in this narrative for a working-class widow and 2 children he'd never met. Yet, as he took his place beside his bride, Richard couldn't stop seeing Marianne's face. The shock, the horror, the devastating realization transforming her features. For 9 years, he'd convinced himself that she'd moved on, that she was better off without him and his debts, that his death had been a gift to her. Tonight, he'd seen the truth written across her face. He hadn't given her freedom. He'd given her abandonment, struggle, and grief. "Do you, Ryan Saunders, take Isabel Monroe to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Richard looked into Isabel's expectant face. This woman who knew nothing of his past, who loved the carefully constructed fiction he'd become. "I do," he said, sealing his fate with a lie. But even as applause erupted and Isabel leaned in for their first kiss as husband and wife, Richard knew with devastating certainty his past had finally caught up with him. And somewhere across the city, Marianne Collins was deciding what to do about it. Morning light filtered through the thin curtains of Marianne's bedroom, but she'd been awake for hours, staring at the ceiling. Sleep had come in fragments, each one shattered by the image of Richard descending those marble stairs. She reached for her phone on the nightstand. 3 missed calls from Lauren, a text asking if she was okay. She wasn't. The bed springs creaked as she sat up. Sunday. The twins would sleep late. Small mercies. She needed time to compose herself, to decide what to do with this bomb that had detonated in her carefully constructed life. In the kitchen, she made coffee on autopilot, then pulled out Daniel Harper's business card. The cream cardstock felt substantial between her fingers. Harper Architectural Design, it read, followed by his contact information and a small embossed logo. A quick Google search on her phone revealed what she suspected. Daniel Harper wasn't just an architect. He was the founder of a prestigious firm that designed luxury homes and commercial buildings across 3 states. Why had such a man bothered with her? Her phone buzzed again. "Lauren, I know you're avoiding me." Lauren's voice came through immediately. "But we need to talk now." "I can't. The kids. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Make more coffee." True to her word, Lauren arrived exactly 19 minutes later, still wearing last night's makeup, her eyes bloodshot from either lack of sleep or too much post-wedding champagne. "You got fired," she announced, dropping her purse on the kitchen table. "And so did I." Marianne winced. "Lauren, I'm so sorry." "Forget that." Lauren waved dismissively. "What happened last night? You saw Ryan Saunders and completely fell apart. Why?" Marianne's hands tightened around her coffee mug. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me." The words felt surreal leaving her mouth. "Ryan Saunders is Richard. My Richard." Lauren's expression didn't change. No shock, no disbelief. She simply nodded slowly, eyes never leaving Marianne's face. "You knew." The realization hit Marianne like a physical blow. "You've known all along." Lauren's gaze dropped to the chipped laminate tabletop. "Not all along. 3 years. 3 years!" Marianne's voice rose sharply before she remembered the sleeping children. She continued in a fierce whisper. "You've known for 3 years that my husband, the father of my children, is alive, and you said nothing. He paid me," Lauren admitted, her voice small. "A lot. Monthly deposits. All I had to do was keep an eye on you. Report back occasionally." "Report what?" The betrayal cut deeper than Marianne could have imagined. "How you were doing. If you were dating. If you needed money." Lauren's eyes welled with tears. "I swear, Mari, I thought I was helping. The money he sent through me paid for Ethan's asthma treatments last year. Remember when I won that contest and gave you the prize money? That was from him." Marianne felt sick. So our entire friendship was a lie. No. Lauren reached across the table, but Marianne pulled back. I was your friend first. When he contacted me, I thought he was trying to do right by you without complicating your life. By letting me believe he was dead. Rage bubbled up, hot and clarifying. By watching me struggle to feed his children while he lived in luxury. A small voice came from the hallway. Mom, why are you yelling? Both women turned. Ethan stood in the doorway, hair rumpled from sleep, eyes wide with concern. It's nothing, sweetie. Marianne forced a smile. Grown-up stuff. Go wake your sister. I'll make pancakes. After Ethan reluctantly retreated, Marianne turned back to Lauren. You need to leave now. Marie, I don't want to hear it. You betrayed me for years. She stood, opening the front door. If you speak to him, tell Richard I know exactly what he did, and I won't stay quiet about it. After Lauren left, Marianne leaned against the closed door, trying to steady her breathing. She'd make pancakes. She'd smile for her children. She'd pretend everything was normal, but nothing would ever be normal again. In the penthouse suite of the Four Seasons, Richard paced across plush carpet, phone pressed to his ear. His new bride slept in the adjoining room, exhausted from the wedding and blissfully unaware of the crisis unfolding. What do you mean she knows? He hissed into the phone. What exactly did she say? Lauren's voice came through, strained and tearful. Exactly what I told you. She knows you're Ryan Saunders. She knows you've been alive all this time. And she's furious, Richard. I've never seen her like this. Did she mention going to the press? Not specifically, but she said she won't stay quiet. A pause. She knows I've been your informant. Our friendship is over. Richard ran a hand over his face. I'll double your usual payment. Keep trying to talk to her. It's not about money anymore. Lauren's voice hardened. Do you have any idea what she's been through? Working 3 jobs, skipping meals so the kids could eat, pawning her wedding ring to pay for Lily's emergency room visit last year. The guilt that had been gnawing at Richard since last night intensified. I sent money, a fraction of what they needed, and always filtered through me so you could keep your hands clean. Lauren's disgust carried clearly through the phone. I'm done, Richard. Fix your own mess. The line went dead. Richard slammed the phone down on the marble countertop, then immediately checked to make sure Isabel hadn't woken. His mind raced through possibilities, contingency plans. The press would have a field day if this got out. Tech mogul faked death, abandoned family. His investors would pull out. The merger would collapse. Isabel would leave him. Everything he'd built would crumble. But deeper than these practical concerns, something else nagged at him. The memory of Marianne's face last night, the devastation he'd caused, and his children. God, his children. He had 9-year-old twins he'd never met. He thought back to that rainy night 9 years ago, when everything had spiraled out of control. 9 years earlier, the rain pounded against the windshield as Richard gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. The pregnancy test had been positive. Twins. Marianne was ecstatic, already making plans for the nursery in their small apartment. But all Richard could think about was the $150,000 he owed to Vincent Calabrese and his associates. Money borrowed for investments that had gone catastrophically wrong. Money that came with threats, with broken fingers as warnings, with promises of worse to come. His phone rang. Calabrese's number. Time's up, Vaughn, the gravelly voice said without preamble. I'm sending my boys to collect one way or another. I need more time, Richard pleaded. My wife is pregnant, please. Should have thought of that before you borrowed money you couldn't repay. Tomorrow, midnight. The call ended. Richard's mind spun with terror. They'd hurt Marianne. They'd hurt his unborn children. Unless Richard Vaughn disappeared, the plan formed with desperate clarity. The mountain road, the guardrail, the ravine, his wallet left in the car. Then a new identity, already prepared through less than legal channels. A fresh start in Dallas with the small amount he'd managed to hide away. One day, when he'd made enough money, he'd make it right. He'd return to Marianne and their child. He'd explain everything. But days became months. Months became years. The investments he made with his new identity, Ryan Saunders, paid off spectacularly. He became wealthy beyond his wildest dreams. Each time he thought of returning, he convinced himself it was still too dangerous, that Marianne was better off without him. that reappearing would only disrupt her life. Until last night, when his carefully constructed reality had shattered with the sound of breaking crystal. Back in the present, Richard made a decision. He couldn't let Marianne expose him. Not yet. He needed to control this situation. He reached for his phone again and dialed a different number. "It's me," he said when the call connected. "I need you to find an address for me. And I need information about 2 children. Twins. 9 years old." He would face Marianne. He would explain. He would offer her money. Enough to solve all her problems. She would understand he'd had no choice. At least, that's what Richard told himself as he stepped into the shower to prepare for the confrontation that would either save or destroy the life he'd built on lies. Monday morning brought a semblance of routine back to Marianne's life. She packed lunches, checked homework, and kissed the twins goodbye as they boarded the school bus. But beneath the ordinary motions, her mind churned with strategies and contingency plans. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk, for the children's sake. Ear." Her heart lurched. How had he gotten her number? Lauren. Probably. Marianne deleted the message without responding. 20 minutes later, her phone rang. The diner where she worked weekday afternoons. "Marianne, it's Pete. Look, I hate to do this, but we're cutting back hours. Don't come in today. I'll call when we need you." The line went dead before she could respond. She stared at the phone, a cold realization forming. This was Richard's doing. First the catering job, now the diner. How many of her employers would receive mysterious calls about her unreliability? Before the day was over, as if on cue, her phone chimed with another text. "Stop blocking me, or things will get worse. Meet me." 2 hours, the coffee shop on Maple Street. Fury replaced shock. How dare he threaten her livelihood? She grabbed her purse and keys, then stopped, hand on the doorknob. Meeting Richard meant acknowledging him, giving him power. Not meeting him meant risking her remaining jobs. For the twins' sake, she would go. But on her terms, the coffee shop on Maple was carefully chosen, she realized, as she pushed open the door 90 minutes later, upscale enough for Richard's new persona, but casual enough that a chance meeting wouldn't raise eyebrows. She spotted him immediately in the corner booth, wearing sunglasses indoors like a cliché. "You look ridiculous," she said, sliding into the seat opposite him. Richard removed the sunglasses, revealing bloodshot eyes. "Thank you for coming. You threatened my job. What choice did I have?" "I didn't..." He paused, recalibrating. "That's not what I meant to happen. I just needed to talk to you. Up close." Richard looked both the same and utterly different. The bone structure she'd once traced with loving fingers remained, but everything else had been polished, refined, expensive haircut, tailored clothes, manicured nails, a stranger wearing her husband's face. "You have 5 minutes," Marianne said, ignoring the coffee he'd ordered for her. He still remembered how she took it. Black. 1 sugar? The thought made her irrationally angry. "I can explain everything." Richard leaned forward, voice low. "That night, when I disappeared, I was in trouble. Dangerous people were after me for money I owed. They threatened to hurt you, to hurt our baby. Babies," she corrected coldly. "Twins, Ethan and Lily." Pain flashed across his features. "I didn't know about twins until much later, I thought. I thought I was protecting you by disappearing, making a clean break. For 9 years. Marianne's laugh was brittle. "While I worked myself to exhaustion raising your children, while I told them bedtime stories about their brave, dead father, I sent money through Lauren. Scraps from your table charity." She leaned forward, voice dropping to a fierce whisper. "Do you know what Ethan asked me last Christmas? Why Santa doesn't bring him a daddy like his friend Tommy has." "How do you think that felt?" Richard flinched. "I'm sorry. More than you can imagine. But I'm here now, and I want to make it right." He reached into his jacket, produced an envelope, and slid it across the table. "This is just the beginning. Enough to buy a house. Put the kids in private school. Whatever you need." Marianne didn't touch the envelope. "You think money fixes this? It's a start." His eyes pleaded with her. "The other option is that this goes public. My life gets destroyed. Your children become tabloid fodder. And you get dragged through a media circus. Nobody wins. Is that a threat?" "It's reality," Richard reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Please, Marianne, take the money. Let me support you properly. Quietly. I'll set up a trust for the twins' education. You'll never struggle again. For a moment, Marianne imagined it. Financial security, a home with a yard, no more choosing between electricity and new shoes for growing feet. Then she thought of the look in Richard's eyes last night when he'd seen her. Not love, not remorse, but fear. Fear of exposure. And your new wife. Does she know about your previous life? Richard shifted uncomfortably. Isabel and I, it's complicated. That's a no. Marianne stood, leaving the envelope untouched. I need time to think. Marianne, don't contact my employers again. Don't contact me again until I reach out first. And Richard, she fixed him with a level stare. If you try to see the children without my permission, I'll go straight to the press. As she walked away, Marianne felt eyes on her back. Not just Richard's. A dark-haired woman at the counter, pretending to read a magazine, had been watching their entire exchange with calculated interest. Isabel Monroe Saunders adjusted her designer sunglasses as she watched the coffee shop door close behind the thin brunette. So this was her husband's dirty little secret. Not the mistress Isabel had suspected, but something far more intriguing. From her vantage point, she'd observed the entire conversation. The woman's anger, Ryan's desperation, the envelope of money that remained on the table. The body language told her everything. Words couldn't. She waited until Ryan left, looking shaken, before she entered the coffee shop and slid into his vacated seat. The envelope still sat there, untouched, curious. She peeked inside. Cashier's checks totaling $250,000. A small fortune for most people. Pocket change for her husband. Her husband. The thought brought a bitter smile to her lips. They'd been married exactly 2 days, and already she'd discovered he was living a double life. But then, so was she. Isabel pulled out her phone and made a call. Vincent, it's Belle. I need everything you can find on a woman named Marianne. Apparently, she has a history with our mutual friend. And children. She paused. Yes. This changes everything. Daniel Harper reviewed the blueprints for his latest project. But his mind kept drifting to the woman from the wedding. Marianne, with her haunted eyes and quiet dignity. He'd looked her up online this morning. A completely uncharacteristic move for him. There wasn't much. A sparse Facebook profile, mentions in PTA newsletters, a 9-year-old obituary for Richard Vaughn, survived by his pregnant wife, Marianne Collins Vaughn. The pieces were beginning to fit together. The ghost she'd seen at the wedding wasn't just anyone. It was her supposedly dead husband. His phone rang, startling him from his thoughts. Harper Architectural, he answered automatically. Mr. Harper, this is Marianne Collins. We met at the wedding on Saturday. His heart quickened unexpectedly. Yes, of course. How are you? A pause. Not great. Actually, I could use a friend right now. Someone who isn't part of this mess. I know it's presumptuous. Have dinner with me tonight, he said, surprising himself with the directness. Nothing fancy, just food and conversation. I have twins, 9 years old. I can't just bring them, Daniel found himself saying. There's a pizza place near the park on Elmwood. Kid-friendly. No pressure, just you looked like you could use a break from whatever's going on. Another pause. Longer this time. Pizza at 6:30. I'll be there. As he hung up, Daniel questioned his own motives. Was he genuinely concerned for a woman in distress? Or was he drawn to her for more selfish reasons? 3 years a widower had left him lonely, yet no woman had captured his interest like this troubled stranger with fierce, protective eyes. Whatever his reasons, Daniel knew one thing with certainty. Marianne Collins was walking into a storm, and she'd need allies before it was over. Marianne watched Ethan and Lily demolish their second slice of pepperoni pizza, while Daniel Harper entertained them with stories about designing a house with a water slide from the bedroom straight into the pool. That's not real, Ethan declared, though his eyes shone with delight at the possibility. It absolutely is, Daniel insisted, sketching the concept on a napkin. The family had 3 boys who were Olympic swimming hopefuls. They wanted training to start the minute they woke up. Lily giggled, pizza sauce dotting her chin. Mom, can we have a water slide house? Sure, honey. Right after we win the lottery. Marianne smiled. surprised to find the expression genuine. She'd been hesitant about this dinner, worried it would feel like charity or, worse, a date with her children as awkward chaperones. Instead, it felt normal, pleasant even. Daniel spoke to the twins with easy respect, neither condescending nor trying too hard to impress them. He seemed genuinely interested in Ethan's dinosaur facts and Lily's detailed explanation of her rock collection classification system. "So you're an architect," Ethan said, circling back to an earlier thread. "Did you build our school? It's pretty boring." Daniel laughed. "No, I mostly design houses and office buildings, but schools shouldn't be boring. Maybe one day I'll design one with secret passages and a moat. With alligators," Lily perked up. "Friendly ones, trained to help with math homework." The twins dissolved into giggles, and Marianne found herself laughing too. When was the last time she'd laughed like this? Weeks, months. "Hey, I saw an ice cream place next door," Daniel said, meeting Marianne's eyes with a questioning glance. She nodded slightly, and he continued, "Would you two like dessert?" "Yes," the twins chorused. "Great. Why don't you go pick your flavors? We'll be right there." He handed each child a $5 bill. Through the window, they could see the ice cream shop entrance just a few doors down. "Stay together," Marianne instructed as they slid from the booth. "We'll watch from here." Once the children were out the door, Daniel's expression turned serious. "How are you holding up, really?" Marianne sighed, shoulders slumping now that she didn't need to maintain the facade for her children. "Honestly, I'm terrified, Richard. Ryan, whatever he calls himself now, he's powerful. He's already gotten me fired from 2 jobs. He offered me money to keep quiet. Did you take it?" "No," she said, then hesitated. "But I'm wondering if I should have. The twins need stability, security. Maybe I should just take his money and disappear." Daniel considered her thoughtfully. "What do you actually want from him?" The question caught her off guard. What did she want? Revenge, justice, an explanation. "I don't know," she admitted. "Part of me wants to ruin his life like he ruined mine. Part of me wants to protect the twins from ever learning the truth. Those may not be compatible goals. I know." She watched through the window as Ethan pointed at ice cream flavors, Lily bouncing excitedly beside him. "I just want them to be happy." Daniel's hand moved across the table, not quite touching hers, but close enough that she felt the warmth. "Whatever you decide, I'd like to help. No strings, no expectations, just, I have resources, connections. Use them if you need to." Marianne studied his face, looking for hidden motives. She found only genuine concern. "Why? You barely know me." A shadow crossed his features. "When my wife died, I learned who my real friends were, and weren't. Some disappeared, others tried to fix me with casseroles and blind dates." His smile was wry. "The ones who helped most were those who simply offered support without pushing. I'm just paying it forward." Before she could respond, the twins burst back in, chattering excitedly about their ice cream selections. The moment passed, but Marianne felt something shift, a tiny foundation of trust being built in a world where all her certainties had crumbled. Across town, in the penthouse suite of the Four Seasons, Isabel Monroe Saunders poured herself a generous glass of Cabernet and waited. Her new husband was working late. Again, 3 days married, and already the pattern was set. The door clicked open at 9:17 p.m. Richard loosened his tie as he entered, surprise registering when he saw her still awake, legs tucked beneath her on the sofa. "Long day?" she asked, voice carefully neutral. "The merger's hitting some snags." He crossed to the bar, poured whiskey. "Nothing I can't handle." Isabel sipped her wine. "Anything else keeping you busy, old friends, perhaps?" Richard stilled, glass halfway to his lips. "What are you talking about?" "Interesting thing happened today," she continued conversationally. "I was having coffee on Maple Street when I saw you meeting a woman. Quite intensely." She tilted her head. "Anything you want to tell me, darling?" The blood drained from Richard's face. "You followed me. Don't be dramatic. I was there by coincidence. A lie, but a necessary one. Who is she, Ryan? Or should I call you Richard?" The glass in his hand trembled slightly. "How much do you know?" "Enough." Isabel set her wine down, all pretense gone. "You're not Ryan Saunders. Your real name is Richard Vaughn. You faked your death 9 years ago. abandoning a pregnant wife who believed you died in a car accident. You've been living under a false identity, building a business empire based on lies. Her smile was razor sharp. Did I miss anything? Richard collapsed into the armchair across from her, defeat written across his features. How? I have resources, and you've been sloppy. She leaned forward. The question is, what happens now? Are you going to divorce me? Go to the press? Isabel laughed, a sound without humor. And ruin myself in the process. I just married you. My family's hotels are tied up in your investments. No, Richard. I'm not going to expose you. Relief flooded his face. Thank you. I can explain everything. I'm sure you can. You're very good at explanations. She stood, smoothing her silk robe. But that's not what interests me. What interests me is your wife. Marianne. Richard's expression darkened. Ex-wife, and she's not your concern. She is now. Isabel moved to the window, gazing out at the city lights. You see, we have something in common. You're Marianne and I. We've both been deceived by you. What do you want? She turned, her face illuminated by the city's glow. I want to meet her. Absolutely not. It wasn't a request. Isabel's voice hardened. Arrange it, or I'll arrange it myself. And you really don't want that, Richard. I promise you don't. Across the city, in a modest walk-up apartment, Marianne tucked the twins into bed. The evening with Daniel had been a welcome respite from the chaos, but reality returned as soon as they got home. An email from her third employer, the cleaning service, regretfully terminating her contract. Richard was systematically cutting off her income, forcing her hand. After kissing the twins goodnight, she returned to the kitchen table where she'd left the contents of her purse scattered. Among the items was Daniel's business card. She ran her finger over the embossed lettering. Considering her options, her phone chimed with a text. Unknown number again. We need to talk. My wife knows. Meet us tomorrow, 2 p.m., the Botanical Garden Cafe. For everyone's sake. Yeah. Marianne stared at the message, pulse quickening. His wife knows, and wanted to meet her. It had to be a trap. She reached for Daniel's card again, then hesitated. She couldn't keep dragging him into her mess. This was her battle to fight. But as she prepared for bed, a new plan began forming in her mind. If Richard and his new wife wanted to meet, she would be ready, not as the desperate single mother they expected, but as someone with leverage of her own. She pulled out an old shoebox from the top shelf of her closet. Inside lay the only items she'd saved from her life with Richard: their marriage certificate, his death certificate, newspaper clippings about the accident, and, most importantly, a USB drive containing financial records Richard had left behind. Records she'd never fully understood, but had kept anyway. It was time to understand them. It was time to fight back. The Botanical Garden Cafe offered an illusion of privacy amid lush greenery and the gentle splash of a nearby fountain. Marianne arrived 10 minutes early, dressed in her best interview outfit. A navy pencil skirt and white blouse she'd purchased from a thrift store but diligently maintained. Her only power play in a game where she was drastically outmatched. She'd spent the previous evening poring over Richard's old financial records. Most were indecipherable to her, but one name had appeared repeatedly: Vincent Calabrese. A quick internet search revealed little beyond a decade-old obituary. Vincent Calabrese, 49, survived by his sister Isabella. No cause of death listed. Isabella. Isabel. The coincidence seemed too precise to be accidental. Now, sipping water to calm her nerves, Marianne spotted them. Richard in an impeccable gray suit, and beside him, a striking woman with glossy dark hair and predatory grace. They moved through the cafe like visiting royalty, other patrons instinctively shifting to make way. Marianne. Richard's voice was tight as they reached her table. Thank you for coming. This is Isabel, my wife. Isabel extended a manicured hand. How fascinating to finally meet you. Marianne shook it briefly, noting the woman's appraising gaze. Likewise, though the circumstances are unusual. Indeed. Isabel settled into a chair, arranging herself like a cat finding the perfect perch. Richard has told me so little about you. Richard. Marianne raised an eyebrow. Not Ryan. Richard flinched visibly. Isabel knows everything. Not quite everything, Isabel corrected smoothly. For instance, I don't know why you kept this poor woman believing you were dead for 9 years while you built an empire. Her smile was venomous sweetness. Or why you married me 3 days ago when you already had a wife. Ex-wife, Richard muttered. Legally, I'm presumed dead. The marriage was dissolved. How convenient for you. Marianne kept her voice level. What do you want from this meeting? Isabel leaned forward. Straight to business. I like that. We want discretion, obviously. Richard's public image is important to both our interests now. Your brother was Vincent Calabresi, Marianne said, watching Isabel's perfect composure slip for just a fraction of a second. The man Richard owed money to, the reason he claimed he had to disappear. Richard's face went slack with shock. How did you... You left financial records behind. Not much, but enough. Marianne turned to Isabel. Did you know your husband when he was still Richard Vaughn? Or did you find him later, when he became Ryan Saunders? The cafe suddenly felt very quiet, as if the air itself was holding its breath. My brother died because of your husband, Isabel said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. When Richard disappeared, Vincent's associates blamed him for the lost money. They executed him as a warning to others. Her eyes, when they met Marianne's, held a glacial fury. I spent years tracking down the man responsible. Imagine my surprise when I discovered Richard Vaughn had transformed himself into Ryan Saunders. Tech wunderkind. Richard's face had gone ashen. Belle, I had no idea Vincent died. I swear to God. Save it. Isabel's tone cut like a blade. We're not here to discuss the past. We're here to ensure the future proceeds as planned. Marianne looked between them, understanding dawning. This marriage, it's revenge. Isabel's laugh was brittle crystal. It's business. Richard owes a debt. I'm collecting it, piece by piece, year by year. Why tell me this? Marianne asked. Because you're a complication. Isabel's gaze was calculating. One that needs resolving. Richard finally seemed to find his voice. What my wife means is that we want to offer you a deal. Financial security for you and the children in exchange for your silence. Marianne thought of the twins' faces when she'd dropped them at school that morning. How Ethan had hugged her extra tight, sensing her distress. How Lily had proudly shown her a drawing of their family. Just 3 stick figures holding hands. My children believe their father died a hero, she said quietly. What do I tell them now? That he's alive but abandoned them. That he chose money over them. That he's married to a woman who sees him as a repayment plan. Tell them whatever you want, Isabel said dismissively. Just keep our names out of it. Richard at least had the decency to look pained. The money I'm offering would change their lives. Marianne, private schools, college funds, a real house. Isn't that worth something? Before Marianne could answer, her phone buzzed with a news alert. Then Richard's phone chimed, followed by Isabel's. All 3 stared at their screens, reading the same headline. Tech CEO Ryan Saunders' secret past, faked death, abandoned family. Beneath the headline was a grainy photo of Richard and Marianne in the coffee shop the day before. You did this. Richard's voice trembled with rage as he looked up at her. No. Marianne felt sick. I would never expose my children to this. Isabel's phone rang. She answered, listened briefly, then said, Damage control now. To them, she added, that was my publicist. It's everywhere. Social media, business press, tabloids. Her eyes narrowed at Marianne. If you didn't leak this, who did? The answer came in a text that lit up Marianne's phone. I warned you about Richard years ago. You didn't listen. Sorry about the press, but it was time. I have more if you need it. Lauren, Marianne whispered. She must have been documenting everything. Richard stood abruptly. We need to go. The press will be swarming soon. Sit down, Richard, Isabel commanded, already typing furiously on her phone. Running looks guilty. We issue a statement. Acknowledge your past. Spin it as a man who made mistakes trying to protect his family from dangerous elements. We embrace the story. Control it. She looked up at Marianne. And you'll need to corroborate whatever narrative we create. Why would I do that? Because otherwise, this gets very ugly for your children. Isabel's voice was silk over steel. Think of their faces when classmates show them tabloid stories about their mother. Think of the reporters camped outside your apartment. The threat hung in the air between them. Marianne felt cornered, trapped between impossible choices. Her phone vibrated again. A call from Mrs. Patel. "Marianne, there are men with cameras outside your building," the older woman said when she answered. "They're asking about you and someone named Richard. The twins will be home from school soon. What should I do?" "Keep them inside your apartment," Marianne instructed, fighting to keep her voice calm. "I'll be there as soon as I can." She hung up and faced Richard and Isabel. "Too late. The press is already at my home. My children are about to walk into a nightmare, and it's entirely your fault." She stood, gathering her purse with shaking hands. "I have to go protect my family. The concept might be foreign to you both." "Marianne, wait." Richard reached for her arm. She jerked away. "Don't touch me. Don't contact me. My only priority now is shielding Ethan and Lily from the fallout of your selfishness." As she walked away, Marianne's phone rang again. "Daniel Harper. I just saw the news," he said when she answered. "Are you okay? Where are you?" Tears threatened to spill as the weight of everything crashed over her. "The press is at my apartment, the twins. I'll pick them up from school," he said immediately. "Bring them to my place. It's in a secure building with a doorman. The press won't get past the lobby." "Why are you doing this?" she asked, voice breaking. "Because no one did it for me when I needed it," he said simply. "Text me their school information, then get yourself somewhere safe. We'll figure out the rest later." As she ended the call, Marianne glanced back at the cafe. Richard and Isabel were huddled in intense conversation, their perfect facade cracking under pressure. Their castle of lies was crumbling, but Marianne took no pleasure in it, because her children's world was crumbling too. Daniel's penthouse apartment occupied the entire top floor of a sleek high-rise downtown. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic city views, while modern furniture in muted grays and blues created a space that was both sophisticated and surprisingly comfortable. "You live here alone?" Marianne asked, watching the twins explore with wide-eyed wonder. They'd been subdued since Daniel picked them up from school, sensing the tension but not understanding its source. "Since Clara died," he confirmed quietly. "I designed it for us. Never had the heart to move." Ethan had discovered a glass chess set on a side table and was carefully examining the pieces. Lily pressed her nose to the window, gazing at the toy-sized cars far below. "I should tell them something," Marianne murmured. "They know something's wrong." Daniel nodded. "Use the guest room if you want privacy. I'll make dinner." She led the twins to the guest bedroom, its king-sized bed neatly made with expensive-looking linens. They sat on the edge, watching her with identical expressions of concern. "Are we in trouble?" Ethan asked finally. "No, sweetheart, not at all." Marianne took a deep breath. "But there is something important I need to tell you. Something about your father." Lily's eyes widened. "Dad? But he's in heaven." Marianne's heart constricted. How could she possibly explain? That's what I thought too, what I believed. But I've learned something recently that changes everything. She took their small hands in hers. "Your father didn't die in that accident. He's alive." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Ethan's face contorted with confusion. "But you said..." "The police came. They found his car." His voice rose with each fragment. "I know, baby, that's what they told me. But it turns out your father faked the accident. He left us." "Why?" Lily's question was barely audible. Marianne struggled for an explanation that wouldn't destroy them completely. "He was scared. He owed money to dangerous people. He thought disappearing was the only way to protect us. But he never came back," Ethan said, a new edge to his voice. "Even when the dangerous people were gone." "No, he didn't." Marianne couldn't sugarcoat that truth. "Where is he now?" Lily asked. "He lives in the city. He built a new life." Marianne swallowed hard. "He got married again recently." "Does he know about us?" Ethan's question cut to the heart of the matter. "Yes," Marianne admitted. "He's known for a while." Ethan's face flushed with sudden anger. "So he didn't want us. He knew we were alive and didn't care. It's more complicated than that, but..." She couldn't find words to defend Richard's choices. Tears welled in Lily's eyes. "Does he love us?" The question broke Marianne's heart. "I don't know, sweetheart. I think he convinced himself that staying away was better for everyone." "That's stupid," Ethan declared, jumping off the bed. "And mean, and I hate him." He bolted from the room before Marianne could respond. Lily remained, silent tears tracking down her cheeks. Marianne gathered her daughter close, rocking her gently. "Are there people taking pictures of us because of him?" Lily whispered against her shoulder. "Yes," Marianne admitted. "Your father became famous with his new name. People are interested in the story. I don't want to be in a story," Lily sobbed. "I want things to be normal again." Marianne kissed the top of her daughter's head. "I know, baby, I know." That night, after the twins finally fell asleep in the guest room, Marianne joined Daniel on his balcony. He wordlessly handed her a glass of red wine. "How did they take it?" he asked, leaning against the railing. "About as well as you'd expect. Ethan's furious. Lily's heartbroken." Marianne sipped the wine, letting its warmth spread through her. "I've spent 9 years building a story for them about a father who loved them so much, who died trying to provide for them. Now they know it was all a lie." "Not all of it," Daniel said gently. "The love you've given them, that's real." Her phone buzzed with an incoming call. Lauren. She'd been calling relentlessly since the story broke. "Aren't you going to answer?" Daniel asked when she silenced it. "What's there to say? She sold us out to the highest bidder." Marianne's laugh was bitter. "Turns out betrayal is a family tradition in my life. You need a lawyer," Daniel said, changing subjects. "A good one. I can't afford a parking ticket, let alone a lawyer. I have someone, Judith Chen, best family attorney in the state. She owes me a favor. I designed her lake house." He held up a hand when Marianne began to protest. "Just meet with her tomorrow for the twins." Marianne wanted to refuse. Her pride demanded it, but pride wouldn't protect her children. "Thank you," she said finally. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights, for the first time since seeing Richard on those marble stairs. Marianne felt a moment's peace, until her phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "I'm filing for partial custody of my children. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow. This isn't a threat. It's a promise." Richard paced the length of his attorney's office, rage fueling each step. "She poisoned them against me," he fumed. 9 years of feeding them lies. Malcolm Winters, senior partner at Winters & Associates, watched with practiced patience. "Technically, Mr. Saunders, or should I call you Mr. Vaughn now? You abandoned your family and faked your own death. The court will take a dim view of that. I was protecting them. For 9 years. Malcolm's tone was skeptical. "While you built a fortune and remarried without divorcing your first wife, that's a tough sell, even for me." Richard collapsed into a leather chair. "I need to see my children. They're mine too." "Yes, they are. But custody battles are decided on the best interests of the children, not the parents' desires." Malcolm shuffled through papers. "Your wife, your current wife. She's supportive of this action." Richard's laugh was hollow. "Isabel is doing damage control. Our stock has dropped 15% since the story broke. She couldn't care less about the children. That's not helpful to your case." Malcolm removed his glasses. "Let me be frank. You have wealth and influence, which count for something. But you also have a documented history of deception and abandonment. Miss Collins has been the children's sole caregiver their entire lives. She's maintained steady employment, kept them in school, by all accounts been an exemplary mother under difficult circumstances. Circumstances I'm trying to improve." Richard slammed his fist on the armrest. "I'm offering financial security, the best schools, opportunities they can't imagine." "After 9 years of silence," Malcolm reminded him, "the court will question your timing and motives." "I want to know my children," Richard said, voice dropping. "I've missed everything. Their first words, first steps, first days of school. I can't get that back, but I can be part of their future." Malcolm studied him. "Is this about the children, Richard? Or about controlling the narrative, salvaging your reputation?" Richard opened his mouth to protest, then stopped. Was it about the twins, or about his own guilt? His need for redemption in the public eye? "File the papers," he said finally. "Limited visitation to start. Supervised if necessary. I need to try." The next morning, Marianne sat across from Judith Chen in a Spartan office that belied the attorney's fearsome reputation. The woman was diminutive, silver-haired, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Daniel filled me in," Judith said without preamble. "You have a strong case for full custody, Mr. Vaughn, or Saunders, whatever he's calling himself. Abandoned his parental responsibilities for 9 years. No court will grant him primary custody, but some custody, visitation, possibly. He is their biological father." Judith's expression softened slightly. "The question is, what do you want, and what's best for your children?" Marianne thought of Ethan's anger, Lily's tears. "I want to protect them from more pain, and if they want to know their father." The question hung in the air between them. Marianne had no answer. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. "Press finally left your apartment. I can take you home to get clothes. Essentials. Twins can stay at my place as long as needed." Another ally in her corner. Unexpected, undeserved, but desperately needed. "I need to think about what's best for Ethan and Lily," Marianne told Judith finally. "But one thing I know for certain. I won't let Richard use them as props in his redemption story. If he wants to be their father, he'll have to earn it, and that starts with the truth." 3 weeks after the scandal broke, Richard sat alone in his corner office, staring at the financial reports spread across his desk. Saunders' tech stock had plummeted 27% since his true identity was revealed. 2 major investors had pulled out. The merger he'd spent months orchestrating was indefinitely on hold. His empire was crumbling. A soft knock preceded Isabel's entrance. Despite everything, she remained immaculately put together. Armani suit. Perfect makeup, not a hair out of place. The perfect corporate wife, at least in public. "The board meeting's been moved up," she announced, placing a coffee on his desk. "They want to discuss a vote of no confidence." Richard barely looked up. "They can't remove me. I control the majority shares. For now." She perched on the edge of his desk. "But perception matters, Richard. Our clients are nervous. The press is relentless. Every day brings a new headline about the tech mogul who abandoned his family. I'm handling it. By suing for custody." Isabel's laugh was brittle. "That's playing right into the vulture's hands. They're my children." Richard finally met her gaze. "My flesh and blood. Children you were perfectly content to ignore until your reputation needed rehabilitation." Her words struck with precision. "Don't pretend this is about paternal love." Richard flinched. "You don't know what's in my heart. Please." Isabel stood, smoothing her skirt. "I've been watching you manipulate everyone around you for years, including yourself." She checked her watch. "The board meets at 3. I suggest you come prepared to grovel." After she left, Richard unlocked his desk drawer and removed a manila envelope. Inside were printouts of every scrap of information he could find about the twins. School records obtained through less than legal means, medical histories, even surveillance photos taken by private investigators over the years. Ethan played baseball and struggled with math. Lily collected rocks and excelled at science. Both had Richard's eyes, Marianne's smile. Both had been raised without him. His phone rang. His lawyer, Malcolm. "We have a preliminary hearing date," Malcolm announced without preamble. "And I've just received Ms. Collins's response to our petition. She's not contesting visitation." "What?" Richard sat straighter. "She's agreeing. With conditions. Supervised visits only at a neutral location. She's requesting a psychological evaluation for you, and she wants the children to continue therapy throughout the process." Richard felt a surge of triumph. "This is good, right?" "It's unexpected," Malcolm said cautiously. "Her attorney is Judith Chen. She doesn't concede ground easily. I suspect they're setting up for something else. Or maybe Marianne realizes the children need their father," Richard countered. Malcolm's silence spoke volumes. "When can I see them?" Richard pressed. "First supervised visit is scheduled for Saturday. A family counselor will be present. 2 hours at the Children's Center downtown." After hanging up, Richard sat back, emotions churning. He'd see his children, actually meet them, speak to them. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating. His intercom buzzed. "Mr. Saunders, there's an Ethan Vaughn here to see you. Says he's your son. Security wants to know if we should call the police." Richard nearly dropped the phone. "Send him up immediately." Minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and a lanky 9-year-old boy stepped into the reception area. Ethan's dark hair was rumpled, his school uniform wrinkled. He carried a backpack slung over one shoulder, his posture defiant. Richard stood frozen, unable to process the sight of his son, his actual son, standing before him. "Are you him?" Ethan demanded, his voice high but steady. "Are you my father?" Richard found his voice. "Yes, I was Richard Vaughn. I'm your father." Ethan's eyes, Richard's eyes, studied him with unnerving intensity. "You don't look dead, despite everything." Richard almost smiled. "No, I'm not." He gestured awkwardly. "Would you like to come into my office?" The boy shrugged but followed him inside. Richard noticed he stayed standing, refused the offered chair. "How did you get here?" Richard asked, concern finally breaking through his shock. "Does your mother know where you are?" "I took the bus, and no." Ethan's chin jutted up. "She thinks I'm at baseball practice. She'll be worried sick. She's always worried now, because of you." The accusation landed like a physical blow. Richard sat down heavily. "I should call her—" "Not yet." Ethan dropped his backpack on the floor. "I have questions first. Mom won't tell me everything. Says some things are complicated or adult problems." Richard nodded slowly. "What do you want to know? Did you ever want us?" "Me and Lily." The directness of the question, the first question, left Richard momentarily speechless. He'd expected anger, accusations, but not this raw vulnerability beneath the defiance. "Yes," he said finally. "I wanted you very much." "Then why did you leave? Why did you make everyone think you were dead?" Richard considered sugarcoating the truth, but something in the boy's expression, so much like Marianne's when she'd asked similar questions, stopped him. "I was in trouble," he admitted. "I owed money to dangerous people. They threatened to hurt me, to hurt your mother. I thought if I disappeared, they'd leave you both alone." Ethan processed this. "But you didn't come back, even when it was safe." "No." Richard swallowed hard. "I didn't." "Why not?" "Because I was a coward," Richard said, the truth finally breaking free. "Because I built a new life, and I was afraid of losing it, afraid of facing what I'd done." The boy's eyes filled with tears he stubbornly refused to let fall. "Did you ever check on us? Even once?" Richard thought of the surveillance photos, the reports from Lauren over the years. "Yes, from a distance. But you never helped. Mom works all the time. Sometimes she falls asleep at dinner because she's so tired." Ethan's voice rose. "Lily needed braces, but we couldn't afford them. I had to wear the same Halloween costume 3 years in a row. And you were rich the whole time." Each word was a knife, precise and deserved. Richard had no defense. "I sent some money," he said weakly. "Not enough," Ethan countered. "Not yourself." They fell into silence, the enormity of Richard's failures expanding to fill the room. "Are you really trying to take us away from Mom?" Ethan asked finally. "No," Richard shook his head. "I just want to know you, both of you." "Why now? Because everyone found out your secret." The perceptiveness of a 9-year-old was devastating. Richard couldn't lie. Not again. Not to his son. "Partly," he admitted, "but also because seeing your mother again made me realize what I'd thrown away, what I'd missed." Ethan considered this, his young face serious beyond his years. "Lily cries every night now. She doesn't understand why you didn't want us." "I did want you," Richard insisted. I made terrible choices. Mom says choices have consequences." Richard nodded, throat tight. "She's right." Ethan bent down and unzipped his backpack. Pulling out a framed photograph, he placed it on Richard's desk. The wedding portrait of Richard and Marianne that had hung in their apartment for 9 years. "Mom took this down yesterday," Ethan said quietly. "Said it was time to stop living with ghosts." He pushed it toward Richard. "You can have it back. We don't need it anymore." The simple gesture broke something in Richard. This child, this boy he'd abandoned before birth, was showing more dignity and maturity than Richard had managed in 9 years of running. "I should call your mother," Richard said, voice rough. "She must be frantic." Ethan nodded, suddenly looking very young again. "She's gonna be really mad. At me, not you," Richard assured him, as he dialed Marianne's number. Richard looked at his son, this perfect, damaged, resilient extension of himself, and understood with perfect clarity what he'd sacrificed for wealth and status. No corporate empire could possibly be worth the price he'd paid. "Marianne, it's me," he said when she answered, panic clear in her voice. "Ethan's here. He's safe, and I think we need to talk, really talk, about what's best for our children." The emphasis on "our" wasn't lost on either of them. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon as Marianne paced Daniel's living room, phone pressed to her ear. "I'm coming to get him, right now." "I'll bring him to you," Richard countered. "It's starting to rain and—" "No," her voice was steel. "You don't get to play the concerned father now. Text me your office address." She ended the call, hands trembling with a cocktail of relief and fury. Ethan was safe. That was what mattered. Everything else— Richard's reemergence, the custody battle, the media circus— paled in comparison. "I'll drive you," Daniel offered. Already reaching for his keys, Marianne shook her head. "You've done enough. Stay with Lily, please. She shouldn't be alone when she finds out what her brother did." The drive to Saunders Tech headquarters took 20 minutes that felt like hours. By the time Marianne pulled into the gleaming glass building's visitor parking, rain was falling in earnest, fat drops that exploded against her windshield like tiny bombs. The lobby was a monument to wealth, soaring ceilings, abstract art installations, uniformed security. She approached the reception desk, painfully aware of her rain-damp hair and thrift store clothes. "Marianne Collins for Richard Vaughn," she said, deliberately using his real name. The receptionist's eyes widened in recognition. Marianne's face had been plastered across enough tabloids lately. "Mr. Saunders is expecting you, 38th floor." The elevator rose with stomach-dropping speed. When the doors opened, Richard was waiting, Ethan beside him. The boy's defiant posture crumbled at the sight of his mother. "Mom, Marianne enfolded him in a fierce hug, cutting off his explanation. "We'll talk later," she murmured into his hair. Then, to Richard, "Thank you for calling me." Richard nodded, looking oddly diminished in his expensive suit. "He's a remarkable boy." "Yes, he is." She kept her arm around Ethan's shoulders. "We should go." "Wait." Richard ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture she remembered from their life together. "We need to talk, not through lawyers, just us." Marianne hesitated. Part of her wanted to grab Ethan and flee, to protect her family from more hurt. But the resignation in Richard's eyes was new, the arrogance replaced with something that looked almost like regret. "Ethan, wait for me by the elevator," she said finally. Once the boy was out of earshot, she turned back to Richard. "I have nothing to say to you that hasn't already been said. I'm dropping the custody petition." The words hung between them, unexpected and suspicious. "Why?" "Because Ethan's right, my timing was self-serving." Richard's gaze dropped. "I don't deserve them, Marianne, I see that now." She studied him carefully, looking for the manipulation, the angle. "What are you proposing instead?" "Visitation. On your terms, when they're ready." He met her eyes. "And financial support. Proper support, not filtered through Lauren or anyone else. A trust for their education, healthcare, whatever they need. And what do you want in return? A chance, not forgiveness. I haven't earned that. Just a chance to know them, to try to be better than I've been." The sincerity in his voice was either genuine or the performance of a lifetime. Marianne wasn't sure which. "I'll consider it," she said finally. "But first, I need something from you. Name it. The truth. All of it. For the twins." She squared her shoulders. "You owe them that much." Richard nodded slowly. "When?" "Tonight at Daniel's place, 7 o'clock. She turned to leave, then paused. "And Richard, come alone. No lawyers, no Isabel. Just you and the truth. By 7. The rain had intensified into a full-blown storm. Wind lashed against the windows of Daniel's penthouse as Richard arrived, soaked despite his umbrella. The twins sat side by side on the sofa, Lily clutching her stuffed rabbit, Ethan looking both triumphant and terrified at the confrontation he'd instigated. Daniel had offered to leave, but Marianne asked him to stay, a neutral presence in this fraught family reunion. He stood now in the kitchen doorway, a silent support. Richard perched awkwardly on an armchair, as out of place in this domestic scene as a wolf in a nursery. "Ethan, Lily," Marianne began, sitting between them. "Your father has something to tell you. The full story of what happened 9 years ago, and why he left. No more secrets. No more grown-up explanations." She fixed Richard with a pointed look. "Just the truth." Richard took a deep breath. "I was in trouble," he started, addressing the twins directly. "I borrowed money from dangerous people and I couldn't pay it back. They threatened to hurt me, to hurt your mother. I was scared." "So you ran away?" Lily's soft question held no accusation, just confusion. "Yes," Richard's voice roughened. "I faked my death in a car accident. I thought it would keep everyone safe, but you didn't come back," Ethan pressed. "Even when it was safe." "No, I didn't." Richard looked down at his hands. "I moved to Dallas with a new name. I started investing the little money I had left. I got lucky, very lucky. Those investments made me rich. If you were rich, why didn't you help us?" Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Mom works so hard." Richard's composure cracked. "Because I'm a selfish man. Because I convinced myself you were better off without me. Because I was building a new life, and I was afraid of losing it." Lightning flashed outside, briefly illuminating the room in stark relief. 4 people connected by blood and betrayal. A 5th, watching with compassionate detachment. "Did you ever miss us?" Lily whispered. The question seemed to physically pain Richard. "Every day," he admitted. "I kept track of you through a friend. Lauren, she sent me updates. Pictures sometimes. Lauren betrayed Mom too," Ethan said fiercely. "Yes, she did. Because I paid her to." Richard met Marianne's eyes briefly, then returned his gaze to the twins. "I told myself I was helping from afar, but the truth is, I was a coward. I couldn't face what I'd done. And now you want us back because everyone knows your secret," Ethan said, reciting his earlier accusation. Richard shook his head. "I wanted you back long before that. I just didn't know how to undo what I'd done." He leaned forward. "But you're right that the scandal forced my hand. I've been hiding for so long from myself as much as anyone." Silence settled over the room, broken only by the storm outside. Marianne watched her children processing this brutal truth, their young minds grappling with adult complexities. "I have a new wife now," Richard continued softly. "Isabel. We married just before your mother discovered I was alive. Do you love her?" Lily asked. Richard's bitter laugh surprised everyone. "No, and she doesn't love me. We married for complicated reasons. She wants to hurt you," Ethan said with sudden insight. "Because you hurt people." Richard looked startled by the boy's perception. "Yes, something like that." Another silence, heavier this time. "What happens now?" Lily finally asked, looking between her parents. "That depends," Marianne answered. "Your father has dropped his custody petition. He's offering financial support and asking for visitation. When and if you want to see him. Do we have to decide right now?" Ethan's bravado had faded, revealing the 9-year-old beneath. "Nobody," Richard answered before Marianne could. "You don't have to decide anything tonight or tomorrow or next month." He stood, clearly preparing to leave. "I just wanted you to know the truth. All of it. You deserve that much." As he moved toward the door, his phone rang. He checked it, frowning. "It's Isabel. She's called 7 times, he answered, turning slightly away. "What is it?" Marianne couldn't hear Isabel's words, but she saw Richard's face drain of color. "When?" he demanded. "How much time do we have?" His eyes darted to the twins, then back to the floor. "I understand. I'm on my way." He ended the call, visibly shaken. "What's wrong?" Marianne asked, maternal instinct sensing danger. "That was Isabel. The board voted. They're removing me as CEO." Richard's laugh was hollow. "Effective immediately. Security is clearing out my office as we speak." Marianne felt a stab of sympathy despite herself. "I'm sorry. Don't be. I deserve it." He glanced at his watch. "There's more. Isabel found evidence that my former business partner, James, has been embezzling funds. Millions. He's pinning it on me. The FBI is involved." His eyes met Marianne's, desperate and wild. "I have to leave the country tonight." "There's a boat?" "You're running again." The disappointment in Ethan's voice cut through the room. Richard froze. staring at his son. The boy's words seemed to hit him with physical force. "You promised to tell us the truth," Lily added, her voice small but steady. "Running away isn't the truth." Outside, lightning cracked close by, followed immediately by deafening thunder. The storm had arrived in full force, mirroring the tempest within the apartment. Richard looked between his children, Marianne and the door, trapped between his past and his future, between cowardice and courage, between the man he had been and the man he might yet become. 5 years later, Marianne adjusted the centerpiece on the dining room table. Fresh tulips in a crystal vase, a gift from Daniel on their 3rd wedding anniversary last month. Through the window, she could see Ethan shooting baskets in the driveway, his lanky 14-year-old frame already taller than hers. Lily sat on the porch swing, nose buried in a science textbook, occasionally pushing herself with one foot to maintain a gentle rhythm. The doorbell rang precisely at noon. "I'll get it," Lily called, abandoning her textbook and rushing inside. Moments later, Marianne heard her daughter's excited voice. "Dad, you brought cookies." Richard's laugh drifted through the house. "Your favorite, double chocolate chip. How's the science fair project coming?" "I have the hypothesis all worked out, but the experimental design is tricky." Marianne smiled at the animated conversation. These Sunday visits had become routine over the past few years, a strange but functional piece in what had once been chaos. She stepped into the living room, where Richard stood awkwardly with a bakery box in hand. 5 years had softened his appearance. Less designer polish, more genuine humanity. Prison tended to have that effect. "Marianne," he nodded in greeting. "You look well." "Thanks." "How was the drive from the halfway house?" "Fine. The restrictions on my movement are almost over." He glanced around. "Daniel not here today. Business trip to Chicago, back tomorrow." She gestured toward the kitchen. "Come on, lunch is ready. I'll call Ethan." The 4 of them gathered around the table in a ritual that had grown less strained with time. Ethan still maintained a certain reserve with his father, but the raw anger had gradually transformed into something more nuanced. Respect, perhaps, for Richard's choice to stay and face the consequences. That night 5 years ago, when Richard had stood at Daniel's door caught between flight and responsibility, his children's disappointed faces had broken through decades of practiced selfishness. Instead of running to the waiting boat, he'd called his lawyer, then the FBI. He'd confessed to financial improprieties he'd participated in years before, though he'd been innocent of the embezzlement Isabel had discovered. That had indeed been his partner's doing. The evidence Richard provided had helped the authorities build a case against both his partner and several of Isabel's associates, revealing a complex web of fraud that extended far beyond Saunders' tech. In exchange for his cooperation, he'd received a reduced sentence. 5 years. With the last year in a halfway house, Isabel had filed for divorce before his sentencing hearing was complete, disappearing to Europe with what assets she could legally claim. "Coach says I might make varsity next year," Ethan mentioned between bites of lasagna. "That's fantastic," Richard replied. "I played a little basketball in college. Not very well, but..." "I know," Ethan interrupted with the ghost of a smile. "You told me about the championship game where you missed the free throw." "Ah, right." Richard looked pleased that his son had remembered. After lunch, while the twins cleared the table, a household rule that applied to everyone, visitors included, Marianne and Richard stepped onto the back patio, the modest but comfortable home she shared with Daniel, and the twins had a small, well-tended garden that caught the afternoon light perfectly. "They're thriving," Richard observed quietly. "You and Daniel, you've given them stability, security. We've tried." Marianne watched a butterfly land on one of her rose bushes. "Your support helped too. The college funds especially. It had been Richard's first act after his arrest, signing over most of his remaining legal assets to a trust for the twins, with Marianne as trustee, not out of guilt or manipulation, but as a first step toward genuine amends. "I got a job offer," Richard said after a moment. "Nothing flashy. Accounting work for a manufacturing firm outside the city. They know about my record, but they're willing to take a chance." "That's good news." Marianne studied his face. "Will you take it?" "I think so. It's honest work." He smiled ruefully. "A novel concept for me." The back door slid open, and Lily emerged, carrying a folder. "Dad, I need your opinion on something." as Richard bent over her science project notes, offering suggestions in a voice reserved exclusively for his daughter. Marianne felt the familiar mix of emotions that defined their complicated family dynamics: pride in her children's resilience, gratitude for Daniel's steady presence in their lives, and a complex empathy for Richard's belated journey toward redemption. "Mom, phone," Ethan called from inside. "It's Lauren." Marianne's eyebrows rose in surprise. She hadn't spoken to her former friend in nearly 5 years, not since the media frenzy had finally died down. After taking the call in her study, she returned to the patio looking thoughtful. "Everything okay?" Richard asked, noting her expression. "Lauren's moving back to town," Marianne explained. "She wanted to apologize again, ask if we could talk." She shrugged. "I said maybe, eventually." Richard nodded. "Forgiveness is complicated." "Yes, it is," she met his eyes directly. "But not impossible." The unspoken understanding between them needed no elaboration. They had moved beyond forgiveness to something more nuanced, an acknowledgement of past harm and a cautious investment in a healthier future, primarily for the sake of their children. Later, as Richard prepared to leave, Lily hugged him fiercely. "Will you come to my science fair next month?" "Try and stop me," he promised, returning the embrace with careful tenderness, still sometimes unsure of his right to such closeness. Ethan offered a handshake that Richard accepted with appropriate seriousness, respecting his son's boundaries. "Good luck with the job," Marianne said as Richard reached the door. "Thanks. I'll let you know how it goes." He hesitated. "There's something else I wanted to tell you all. I've been debating when to bring it up." "What is it?" Lily asked. Richard took a deep breath. "A few months ago, I received a letter from a young man named Jason Monroe. He's 20 years old, a college student in Arizona." He looked at Marianne, then the twins. "He says he's my son." The silence that followed was profound. "From when?" Marianne finally asked. "During my time as Ryan Saunders, before I met Isabel. A brief relationship with a woman named Cynthia Monroe. She never told me she was pregnant." Richard ran a hand through his hair. That old, familiar nervous gesture. "Jason found out about me from the news stories. He's been trying to make sense of his history. He wants to meet me. Meet all of us, actually." Ethan and Lily exchanged glances, processing this bombshell in the silent communication unique to twins. "So we have a brother?" Lily asked, eyes wide. "Half-brother," Ethan corrected, though without rancor. "Yes," Richard confirmed. "I've verified it. He's my son." Marianne absorbed this revelation, understanding its implications. Another life altered by Richard's choices. Another young person searching for answers. "Bring him next Sunday," she said finally. "If he wants to know his family, he should meet all of us." Richard looked at her with naked gratitude. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." She glanced at the twins, who both nodded with cautious curiosity. "We've all learned the hard way that secrets and lies cause more pain than the truth ever could." As Richard drove away, Marianne stood with her children in the doorway of the home they'd built after the wreckage. Not perfect, not entirely healed, but solid. Daniel would return tomorrow. Life would continue its imperfect forward momentum. Later that night, as she helped Lily with homework, her daughter asked unexpectedly, "Are you still mad at Dad for what he did?" Marianne considered the question carefully. "No," she said finally. "I'm not mad anymore. Sad sometimes, about what might have been, but mostly I'm grateful." "Grateful?" Lily looked confused. "For you and your brother, for the life we have now." Marianne tucked a strand of hair behind her daughter's ear. "And even for the hard parts that led us here, because they made us stronger, because they taught us that happiness isn't about having a perfect past," Marianne explained. "It's about having the courage to build something new from whatever remains." Outside, stars emerged in a clear evening sky. No hint of the storms that had once raged. No trace of the lightning that had illuminated their darkest moments. Just calm, quiet light, steadily guiding them forward.